thousands of viewers. We're back again for another work session in reference to the comprehensive rezoning. And with that, Linda Eisenberg, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, we are really hoping to get through the final bit of the
Aren't we
text
all?
and the map changes. So we're very motivated for today to get through what we have left. Not to scare you, we're on item 14 of 24 in the table 2, but a lot of the upcoming issues after 14 we've already discussed and you've already made decisions on, so we hope this can go relatively quickly. Also in front of you is what we discussed at our prior work session. So 1A through K, those have already been discussed and decided on. So now we're just going to pick up with item 2 unless you'd like to go back over any of the decisions that were made from the last meeting.
Just bear a second, let's
Yes.
just reach real fast.
Does anybody need table 2?
Yes. I don't know what happened to my people.
I thought I had it with all these papers, but
Thank you.
I need one, Mary. Mary, I need I grabbed the wrong pile.
come on, Jay.
I grabbed the wrong pile when I left the office.
All people.
It's highlighted.
Jay,
Boom.
Jay, Jay.
There you go, Weaver. All right, so what did you suggest, just to go through these real quick?
Well, just on our own.
Oh, okay,
but I just
okay.
wanna,
Sure, A through K under
Yeah.
item 1.
just
Right.
give us a couple minutes just to
Yeah,
read through them.
absolutely. That's just a summary of what the
Got it.
decisions were on the 12th. So we weren't going to go back over this unless you want to have continued discussions. So we're going to take a moment just to make
Yeah.
sure.
Should we have music or something in the background?
The increase in size limitation, Jack, the business industrial park,
Hi, Jack.
6,000 to 25,000 square, that's where we, and you're good, that's where you wanted to go.
I'm good.
Was there other, Jack,
Pages sent me,
was that?
Pages sent me a note on, C. But we need to know what that means.
Changed it?
All right, well, go back to his question
Yeah,
first.
so I just, the 25,000 square feet, because we had discussion about increasing it to different sizes, and we settled on 25,000.
They said we were okay on that.
Was there, I just remember, weren't we talking other numbers?
Staff had recommended
Yeah,
10,
10.
but this is just for the business industrial
Got
park,
it.
which is only
This,
one property.
this is just Liberty Exchange, and we said,
Oh.
okay, it's just Liberty Exchange for 25,000.
That's not what, no, it's any business industrial park,
But
or
if
is
it's
it?
a business slash industrial park, it's only something that is previously approved.
Got it, okay.
Further down on the
Okay,
list,
got
we'll
it.
talk about it.
That makes sense, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. All right, so now you were talking about C?
Yes.
Item C?
Kind of have a question here. So the business park and industrial park, we allow subdivision of lots when it's over 20. When between 10 and 20, the park may not be subdivided, must remain under common ownership and control. And I know that we had at length discussion about the subdivision and what really, I guess, what does control mean? It's a question that has been brought forth to me, exactly what do you mean? And common ownership, one entity can be, named, to have different LLCs to hold, different lots within the same.
We just want a clarification on that from
Would
Bladen.
common control be a property management running that?
I mean, I think it's how we write it. I mean, Tom, what are your, I think common control would be property management, would be covenants, like we had at
Right.
the air parks. Those are things we've all utilized in the
Right.
past.
Well, my notes only say common ownership. I think the commissioners got rid of common control.
Yeah, I thought we got rid of
Okay,
common control as
that
well.
was my mistake.
Yeah.
But when we do talk about common control, I'm thinking through property
I
management.
guess if it's over.
Right, and one of the reasons we didn't say common control is because what does it actually mean? But common ownership, you know what it means.
We're good with that. We just need a clarification.
Control of.
Should be
Yeah,
great.
control.
Okay.
So just delete, control?
So
Yes.
just get rid of the word control, right?
And control.
Now, and do we know that common ownership can be, if one
Yes.
entity can call themselves different, own property under different names?
LLCs.
Yeah,
Sure. I mean,
that's a given in this, I guess.
well, it's not necessarily a given, but common ownership does not necessarily mean one property owner. It could be a consortium of property owners under one, you know,
Right.
so in other words, multiple LLC or multiple whatever coming together in a common ownership.
We agree with that, just we want a
Right.
clarification of that.
But you know what I mean, I don't believe common ownership means singular. And that's why it's common, not necessarily the word singular. At least that's my view on it, right?
And it's not able to be subdivided, so that in itself is gonna keep it. So-
We agree, just take that out, the control, but we're good. We just,
Okay.
it was causing us a little heartburn there.
That's good.
You see trading as or a company applies, so that's a different LLC, and that's a consortium typically of whoever.
Okay.
Development of the same company.
Okay, anything else from A through K?
We're good.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Number 2.
Okay, so we're gonna start back on the table 2, which were the comments submitted by, St. John Property. And we're on number 14, which is on page 3. We've gone 1 through 13. We have 14 through 24, but I will say that some of these you've already discussed, so this may move more quickly. So number 14, the request is to specify that if a principal use is permitted in either the I-1 or the commercial districts, but conditional in one of the others, it should be considered permitted and shouldn't have to go through the BZA. And this is because there may be confusion if the use is regulated differently in one of the two. I did look, and staff is recommending, and this was Tom Clay and Jake pretty much saying that this is not the way it's currently administered, so we had recommended no change. I did look, there's only 3 uses in the use table that are permitted in the commercial but conditional in the industrial.
What are the 3 uses?
Auto service center, vehicle sales, and outdoor recreation areas. So those are the 3 uses that would be requiring a Board of Zoning Appeals approval if they were in the industrial park. Now, this request is being made for both the industrial park and the business industrial park. So all industrial parks going forward is what this request is for. So really the question, it kind of boils down to, at least at this point with the use table as it is, for those 3 uses, do you feel it's necessary to have a conditional use approval within the industrial park?
Could you repeat those 3 uses?
Yes, it is the auto service center, vehicle sales, and outdoor recreation area, which is much less likely to be in an industrial park, but I can't say it couldn't be.
Yes.
To keep them as conditional use.
If you make them permitted, is there going to be any issue with it?
It's not the best use of industrial.
Right.
So
Yeah,
It's
that's
conditional
what
use,
it
it could be
is.
used that way, but it has to come out before somebody.
It's not the
What
best
you said,
use
Jack.
of industrial, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Gotta appreciate I was able to
Yeah.
throw that out there. Okay.
Which is what we talked about before. So
So-
I'd say we're good with the staff recommendation, leaving it alone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay, number 15 is, it was noted that missing in the use table are radio and television studios. It was our thought as a group originally, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, that this would just be considered general office use. However, if it's being brought up and there would be confusion about it, we do think it should be added into the use table, and then everybody will be clear. The only place you wouldn't wanna see it is your heavy industrial, which is the I-2.
Radio and television studios, that also includes the large antennas and necessary equipment that extend past those buildings. Because you're not gonna have the building without that very large necessary antenna. So is that thought through that we want to allow those type of antennas to be built? You know,
Do you need that any longer?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean,
Yeah, I think you still do.
I'm thinking you would, but I don't know.
CC would regulate.
I just,
I mean, the Northrop Grumman's of the world, we're very sensitive about their dishes and antennas.
Uh-huh.
They do need them.
Yes, sir.
You know, and we changed the footprint. I think it was 200 feet, and we changed it to 300 feet because they were concerned about, you know, microwaves coming in against theirs. I mean, that was years ago, but you know, what we don't want is like out at the Air Business Park where Verizon came in and put a 199-foot antenna. It's behind Strauss now, and you
Right.
don't want 100. It's 199 feet is the, well, you don't want that. But if it's a use for that company, yes,
So as an accessory.
as an accessory use.
Well, this would be a principal use. This is radio and television studio
Studio.
as a principal use.
In what zones?
Everything but I-2.
Everything except I-2?
Yes, that was our thought, given that we had
C1?
considered it in office originally, and that's where all the offices.
Yeah, I think we
Might
need
want
to.
I don't think C1 would be appropriate for
But
that.
let's like itemize it as a separate use.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely don't believe it's general office space. I believe it needs to be called out for what it is.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. Why would we want
Yeah.
So then
a radio
C-
station in a C1 district?
So in C2 through I1 then? Would you want it conditional?
I think it's conditional.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with it being conditional. Right?
Yeah.
You?
In
I don't-
C through, but not in C1.
No, not in C1.
Right.
Not-
And the other was
Yeah.
conditional, yes.
C2 through,
Yes.
Two, 3, or 5.
Yeah.
You just don't want W2TR sitting in C1. Let's say what all they're in.
and it's all about the infrastructure associated with that, whatever it is.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the covenants would probably, I would think the park
That would
covenants
prob-
could
yeah.
supersede, you know.
Right.
Do we have a radio station and television station currently in Carroll County? And if so, what zone property do they currently lie?
Well, we have WTTR.
Which is where?
I think
That's-
they're in residential.
Yeah, that could be, although it could be ag
The
there
the
too.
Comcast is on conservation.
TTR is in
But
the city,
Carroll
so-
Well-
County
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
We have
That's
Shamrock.
WTTR is, yes.
The Shamrock's the biggest one. We have, it's 750 feet high. And they have besides Shamrock, they have all the dishes all up and down that. That's yours,
It's a
right
radio.
there.
At Radio Towers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been out behind Ridge and
Yeah.
Fuchs, right
Yeah.
there,
We also
behind Fuchs.
have a TV studio down in Eldersburg in the London Town Ball. I don't know if it's still
Yeah.
there or not.
I don't
They're
think
gone,
On-
but they were down there.
Which is in
I-1.
That would have been.
Say what about CMC, that's TV studio?
That's,
Conservation.
that's
I don't think
probably
they're-
conservation, cause
It is
it's out of school, right?
Yeah, that's in conservation.
Maybe it makes sense for them to be conditional
Soccer
uses
and
because
tech
each
center.
one would be so
Yeah.
unique.
And that's
Right.
kind of where I'm going
The
also
conditional
is, why not make it conditional use in C2 through I1?
Yeah.
And what about employment campus?
I think it would have to be the same.
Also condition.
Conditional,
Yeah, I think
Why
conditional is the
not?
right way to
it's
go.
open space.
Yeah. Yep.
I think we need Wance TV.
No, you don't want.
No, we
Oh,
don't.
No, wait a minute.
No.
That's
It's prohibited. That's prohibited.
You do quite well.
Keeping it real and Carol.
He has a face for radio and a voice for selling movies. Keep going.
Well, Commissioner, I don't know if anybody would watch it, right? I mean, you don't even know
Yeah.
it has.
I've watched it.
The people would flock to watch your show. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Commissioner.
Number 16.
Number 16.
Yes, keep moving.
Just affects the Liberty Exchange property. This request was made because currently medical and dental office are permitted in the IR, and that use is actually located at Liberty Exchange. The new code would not be allowing it in the I-1, and they are asking that that not be counted against their commercial percentage, their 15%.
Because it's already there.
It's reasonable. The
But we're not
flowers-
gonna change what's going on in the future there, correct?
Correct. But as far as just that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Same thing, the same arguments being made with hotel, motel, and conference center. We said that going forward, that would be allowed in the industrial park. The request is that these also be, permitted in the business industrial park, which is Liberty Exchange. Both of these uses, hotel and conference center.
We agree with that.
Are we getting a hotel in Liberty Exchange?
They're keeping their options open.
We would love to have more
Is there space?
hotels in Carroll County.
The Rothstein Inn. Okay, we're good with that.
Okay. Number 18, I think we can really
Come in, you
skip
just
over,
can't
there was
leave.
a,
And conference center.
after speaking with representatives of Liberty Exchange, there was a misunderstanding about the percentage and what it applied to that. So I think we really can skip over number 18. They would agree that the percentage only applies and no change is necessary. This next one may require a little bit of discussion. The request is being made for business industrial and all future industrial that parks, that we allow interior yards of 0, and in both the business and industrial parks, the planning commission can reduce the yard requirements. And the rationale for this is that's the way it's written for the employment campus. You had discussed this at a previous work session, I think back in February, and did not want that flexibility in the industrial parks. So we are bringing this forward to you. Our recommendation is no change, but I think Jack and Paige are recommending the changes proposed.
What does that mean, interior yards of 0?
It means
No setbacks.
2 buildings right up against each other.
With no
Almost
separation.
like a
Common
townhouse.
firewall type
Or a
situation.
townhouse, if there were separate lots.
Okay,
Gotcha.
And,
Thanks for asking. I was wondering myself.
okay.
It's kind of 0 lot lines.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing.
Same thing as a townhouse
But it gives,
situation.
Right.
it
Yeah,
gives
but they wouldn't share a
flexibility
common
to.
wall, because
Yeah, they
it's two
would.
different lots.
No.
No, it wouldn't share a common wall.
almost
You
like
could
a
build
main
right
street
next to each
development,
other.
right,
You're not
a
sharing
main
the
street
same wall.
development would
It's
have
not a common wall.
up against each other,
Am I right,
and
Tom?
separate lots.
Say it loud,
Yeah.
please.
So it would be like,
So what,
No,
what,
just the yes parts, I want.
so what problem would we be attempting to fix here with this? I don't understand why why don't you not like that? Why do you want it to be changed?
But the developer, it'd be good for developers if you had a main street, you had people back to back, and then if the planning commission allowed it, let's say for fire, because you wouldn't be able to, you can't get between the 2 buildings now. But we think a developer, give him the flexibility, he could do 0 lot lines back to back, especially like a main street inside Liberty Exchange,
Which,
Yeah.
which they have currently,
So,
no?
no.
not
No.
on separate lots.
No.
No, separate lots.
Right.
You put the 2 lots together,
So-
they would back to back to each other. It just
Okay.
gives you more flexibility for commercial, let's say retail.
Okay, so from an enforcement or from your standpoint, the 3 of you, what's your take on that? Jay, anything? Tom, Clay?
I really don't have any concerns one way or the other.
Tom?
The only thing that might be is when you do show something, and Jack mentioned a little bit about fire service, when you do do a 0 lot line, as far as development review side, it's really not an issue on our end. We don't really have a problem with it. It is and hopefully the developer is prepared enough to do enough homework that when they recognize that when they apply for the building permit, they may not be able to get that 0 setback because of fire service. That's the only quote out there issue. Again, on the development review side, it's easy just to show it, but when you show it, you hope
Right.
they've done their homework.
Yeah, it's coming out though on the development.
What is the setback now?
We had said 10 feet for the side yard setback in the industrial district,
So it'd be 20 feet between buildings, basically, then?
unless they got a variance.
Right, okay.
And the planning commission would really, when they look at it, the only thing would be, I know, we're sensitive to fire.
Yeah, but these buildings essentially, I love it that Weaver pointed that out to me, because you know how Weaver is about sprinklers, but essentially they're gonna be covered anyway, right?
Yes. There's a sprinkler.
By the way, let me point out
They're
again,
brick
Weaver-
buildings.
Commissioner Weaver brought that up. Everybody get that? Weaver brought up about the,
They're gonna be required anyway, so you might as well. Even though I think they should be voluntary.
You're all wet.
don't go there, Weaver. You're good. Just let it go.
Okay.
He'll put you on his TV show. You don't have to worry.
That's right.
So then we would say to go ahead and change this. Is that correct?
If that's what you want to do, yes.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that. I think that's a good, not for me personally.
Change it to allow for.
If one of the three of you would have said no, I would
I
have,
know.
but I don't see
So
any
for
of
some
you saying
backup.
that, so I think we're,
And that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
for this and for the others as well.
Right.
This
Yes.
covers all
Right.
the parks.
yeah. Yep,
Okay?
yeah, I think we're good.
The Covenants and Planning Commission. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
think
still,
we're good.
you're still,
Times have changed when it comes to that way of attacking those things from a public safety standpoint anyway. Maybe 30 years ago that would have been a thought, but not anymore. Okay.
Okay. Comment number 20 is that the business, industrial, and business/industrial parks, be treated the same regarding signage as the planned commercial centers that front on more than one street. And, staff agrees with that. They're allowed, a planned commercial center that is on a corner lot is allowed more signage, for obvious reasons. And that was not written into the sections for parks, and we agree it should be.
Yeah.
we're
Same.
good.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's
Yeah.
good for the business
Yeah,
community as
exactly.
well.
The more signage is always
Yeah,
better.
They're easy to get lost in.
unless it's in the county easement, then I got a problem with it. Now I'm going off on something else anyway. Sorry.
Okay, I'm not sure you want to revisit comment number 21. The request was made that it be for less, that industrial parks be allowed and business parks be allowed on less than 10 acres. We had a pretty lengthy discussion last time about that in regards to if they should be subdivided and such. And I didn't think that you wanted them to be less than 10 acres.
Right.
You'd like to revisit that request right now.
Yeah. Do we want to revisit that?
No.
I think we exhausted it from the last. Yeah.
I think we beat it up pretty heavy last time.
I think the horse is good.
Industrial.
Okay.
Okay, the same could be said for, comment number 22. You went through the list of prohibited uses in detail for the business industrial park, which was Liberty Exchange. You took off those three, uses that are summarized here. Antique store, consignment shop, and automobile service. The request has also been made, for the industrial park going forward. I wasn't sure if you wanted to revisit that for the industrial park going forward, or if that you want the same to apply to both.
We're good with that list, right?
Well, we did it for the business/industrial park, but this is for now,
The industrial.
the
park.
industrial park as it is. So the request is to,
Well, it's the same
Yeah,
request,
it's the
but
same,
just for
right,
the
yeah.
industrial.
Yes,
and the
right, the
decision's
industrial.
already made, so, do you want the same list in both?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
The other question though, or the other request was, and it wasn't specific in the, letter that we got, but that we increase the size of allowable retail store. Now, for the business industrial park, you increase that from 6,000 to 25,000. The industrial park, I wasn't sure if you wanted to look at that differently. Steph is still recommending 10,000 square feet. But
Cause this will apply to all industrial land that chooses to build in a park-like setting.
And now again, here we are with the best available, or the best usage of the property, and
Right.
whether or not it's considered that, which I think you say no, right?
I would say no on that if you're going after manufacturing, but the park, this park, we're fine with 25,000.
But this is parks going forward.
Yeah,
with
but
this
if
one.
parks going forward, I would say no, 25 is way too much.
Yeah.
So 10,000 is fine.
10,000 is
Well,
fine.
could it be 25 for a certain store that needs that?
Well, you don't want to eat up IR or C1 or C2 or with, a grocery store, let's say. It's not the best use
Right.
going
And
forward.
these might not be best cited too for those anyways, you probably wouldn't have those uses wanting to go in the other,
Not
this
in
happens to be a
industrial.
unique
The-
industrial site along 26, which is our commercial corridor,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
I would keep it for Liberty Exchange where you were at 25, but going forward, 10,000 is,
If it is an industrial use, though, it could exceed.
Yes.
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 This
Oh,
is
yes.
just for the
just,
commercial.
let's say a retail use.
And I would also point out that the new industrial park gets an extra 5% of the commercial uses because they're allowed to have 20% instead of the 15% that the
So you've kind of given it,
Liberty Exchange is on.
you've given it more than 10,000.
Right.
Keep it.
But Liberty should stay at 25.
Yeah.
Comment number 23 is for the industrial park going forward, and this wasn't set, there wasn't a specific request, but that you reassess the size limits for accessory uses, which I believe are limited also to 5,000 square feet for accessory uses, unless it's a daycare center or health club, it can be 6,000. Again, you had discussed this back in February and made no change, but it was asked that you reconsider this. This is just accessory uses, not anything else.
Do we have to put a limit on it?
You don't have to put a limit on it?
Well, the problem, if you don't.
Makes
put li-
your job much easier with that, right?
Well, I don't think you have to worry, if you don't have a limit on the size, when does the accessory take over from
Right,
the
it's
principal
accessory.
and become the principal?
Yeah,
Is
that's-
there,
this is an accessory
something that
use.
says accessory use has to be smaller in footprint than?
No, there's nothing that
Because
says that.
sometimes, given the nature of the use,
Accessory though.
Like you could have a construction contractor or storage area and your primary
Right.
business is the construction, the office is small, but
Okay,
their
right.
storage area needs to be bigger, so.
Yeah, I got you.
Could you
Alright.
just simply say not to exceed 50% of the principal use?
No, from what you just said.
No, because it would be, no, that wouldn't work because that's smaller than principal use.
Right.
No, again, principal use, which your accessory use would only be limited to 50% of the size.
Yeah, but the example just given, you have an office and you need a storage yard, the storage yard is gonna be much larger than square footage in the office.
Most construction companies are that way.
And that's
Yeah.
accessory to the
That would be
primary.
industrial use.
I think what might happen there is might have a small business, say 2,000 square feet,
Yeah,
but the yard can be, what we're saying now, can be up to 5,000 square feet, you know? And I don't think you wanna,
Yeah,
maybe
we're-
that the yard can only be 1,000
Right,
square
Right.
we're
feet.
allowing for more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
Be
But-
much more lenient here.
Yeah.
The yard's setting a limit.
Right, my
Right.
question is why 5,000 square feet and not like 10,000 square feet?
If you take the,
I know, and
the
then,
room-
well, that's
the-
the whole point, it becomes
take
arbitrary.
the Ruby Tuesdays or take the Applebee's are about, 68, they're about 6,000 square feet.
Right.
Daycare centers can be anywhere between 6 and
But that's
8,000.
what I-
Yeah, we're talking about the
I'm talking about
accessory,
accessory use.
accessory
Yeah.
and industrial,
Right.
Jack.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So what examples are out there now in usage of accessory use? I mean, because I believe it could be very
You
arbitrary.
could flip the coin, but remember now, though,
What's the best use of the property?
exactly.
But-
So if you got somebody that has 10,000, a 10,000 foot yard, is that the best use of the property?
If it's somebody like MT Lane, it is. Because,
only in the industrial park,
So-
And this is only in the park too.
the industrial park.
right, I know, but, you know, if there is a good, tenant there that is making, like a MT Laney, they need a much larger accessory use area.
I think the concern with the accessory uses, if you just wanna think about it, is that you don't want the accessory use, the tail to wag the dog.
Ladies have it.
So you wanna make sure that the accessory use is actually an accessory use, and not really the principal use
Right.
hidden as an accessory use.
I mean, I got,
Just a,
you're right, and there's lots of different ways we could look at accessory use. An eating area, like a distillery and a bar type of thing.
right.
But then there's also the construction type.
Right,
which
maybe,
could-
maybe there's a way of a variance of some sort for certain kinds of accessory uses, such as the contractor's equipment storage yard or something like that, where you're carving out some exceptions rather than making a blanket rule.
Yeah.
They're not-
I
And we
agree.
are only talking, let me read the section that's in question. Multiple this is only in the industrial park, going forward. Multiple non-industrial accessory uses may be permitted, provided that no accessory use shall exceed 5,000 square feet except the daycare center or health club, which may be up to 6,000 square feet. And in aggregate, the non-industrial accessory uses do not exceed 10% of the acreage of the entire industrial park. So it's another attempt to try to make sure the industrial park is staying industrial, because they have the 20% that can be, principal non-industrial uses, commercial uses, and then they would have possibly this extra 10%. So the two things together, keeping them small in size and the acreage limited, are an attempt to keep the park.
And a lot of
Primarily
things we're,
industrial.
right, and one of the things we're talking about aren't really park-like, they're more pure industrial. In the industrial zone, you can do whatever you need to do for your business, and you don't have this limitation like an MT Laney.
Keep it the way it is, in my opinion, because zoning industrial park, it's not the industrial zone.
And again, that's a by choice too, so a developer would come in knowing that these are the rules as opposed to having the industrial,
Right.
it's,
I think it should just remain, no
Keep-
change.
Keep it the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
Is there any out there where we'd see pushback right now? Any businesses that are out there where we would see some pushback on this type of definition?
well, the parks haven't been utilized yet, so we only have one business/industrial park. So now
Okay.
when the new zoning is adopted, they will
Yeah.
be able to now take advantage of the business park and the commercial, or the industrial park and the industrial. So we'll know once it's implemented how well it's
Right.
being utilized.
I can't think of any parks, forget, even in the
Yeah.
towns that it relates to, we're okay, thinking all the town parks.
Okay.
Okay, comment number 24, you have already discussed, about deleting the requirement that industrial parks and business
Yep.
parks be subdivided. So that is all the comments we have on the text.
Okay.
So,
Says with a smile.
Yes, I do.
yes, thank you, Mary, for leading us through that.
Hey, Mary.
So that's the entirety of the text. Our next step for the text before I get into the maps is to get a clean code to you. But this, as we've discussed through these changes over the last several weeks, this is what the new code will represent. So I guess, is everyone good with, this would be the new code moving forward then after these discussions?
Well, actually, number 4 is a
But not
real-
for 158.
I understand, but
Okay.
number 4 is regarding solar conversion, that's a kind of a technical thing.
Yeah, we'll get it, yeah.
Okay,
But I'm just
okay.
saying from what we've discussed so far.
Okay.
Well, I would say yes to that question, but I would also put a little star beside that and say that we need to see the clean copy.
Okay, yep, absolutely.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, but
Because I
I
can't-
just, before we go down, I just
No,
wanna
I
make
think,
sure
yeah,
we're,
I mean, I think we've vetted a lot of this stuff to the nth degree, we really have.
Yeah.
But we really need to see that clean copy
absolutely.
before we, in case it might be something that we didn't, I don't know,
I agree with you.
so.
okay.
So when we come back before you, the briefing would be, here's the clean copy, and then from there, we would have a discussion on
Yep.
adopting that at a future meeting. I just wanna make sure we get the
Yeah,
request.
well, how-
Yeah, but I think we should have the clean copy before us, before we get to that meeting.
That's what.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
At least a week before the meeting.
yeah, give us a chance
Yeah.
to read it at
We-
midnight when I'm.
You can't do that? So we would be getting this to you before the December 12th. Will we do another work session, or would you want it during a
I think it could be a regular open session.
open session then for the 12th?
Don't you think?
Yeah, as long as we had this a week or so in advance, you could review
Yeah,
it, and we saw it, and we just have an open session to either say, yeah, we'll move forward with this, or no, we won't make these changes.
Okay.
What are you saying? You
I'm
say
saying, this is a segment of the comprehensive plan. We should have the whole comprehensive plan finished before we adopt or put into practice any segment of it because of overlays and changes that could come about as we go through the other areas. And I know I'm a stickler on this, but
Well, I know you brought this up before.
this is a comprehensive, and comprehensive means in the entirety. We don't do it in pieces because of changes that may have to come back as we get into others and how one affects the other one. It should be, we can verbally approve one part, but then I don't think we adopt until the whole plan is completed.
I appreciate that concern, 100%, and I believe we have an opportunity to do that when we are completely finished. But with that said, we've come a long ways with the commercial industrial employment campuses, and I believe that we need to put this into law to allow for businesses to move forward.
Yes.
Because they are waiting, developers, there's a lot of activity going on, and I believe we should take that risk associated with that, keeping in mind if things need to be adjusted, we still can as we move forward, but I do not want to hold this hostage to waiting for everything else to be
But
done.
you can, say you adjust something in that somebody has gone ahead with.
Yep.
And cost them
Yep.
funds from it.
Yep.
And that's our fault, and they're paying for it.
Understand, and the risk associated that is very small. But I think there's much more concern that I have in stifling any business development until we're done with everything, so.
Give me an example of where we stifle development on this. Do we have one?
There is a business that's looking at doing something down in Eldersburg, and the square footage, the determinations that we made here are different than what is in law right now, and they want to move forward with what we are recommending here, and not doing it through any sort of conditional use, but permitted. And if they don't, it will, they're gonna have to go through BZA, right? They would have to. And that would take a lot longer time for them to develop that piece of property. As just that is a very specific example.
I think there's several out there.
There's plenty.
I'm hung up on comprehensive.
I know.
But if but I kind of agree with, I agree with both of you. But I think maybe it's a matter of process or procedure, I don't know, whatever it is. I think if we give the verbal go-ahead on each section as we get to it, that, and with the intent to allow those to do what we have verbally agreed to, and then that allows for us to make any adjustments that would affect this part that we discussed maybe in the ag or something, right?
So what do you mean by verbal?
Yeah, and that's
Well,
the point, it's beyond
I know,
verbal.
it's all about,
It
I
has to
know,
be
it's all about what that
it has to
means.
be
What does verbal
ratified.
mean?
It
I
has
know.
been
It's
agreed.
kinda like what is means, right?
Yeah, sound like Clinton.
Yeah, well.
It would have to be
okay.
adopted in county code for development review and for it to be applied,
Rash,
in that
Clinton.
process. So we can't.
I just don't wanna keep, we've got a long way to go here. And that's only one example.
There's plenty.
And I think there's that we have a fiscal responsibility to our business community to allow them to roll here. And I know that there's several people that have reached out to me that said, okay, come on now, because we're ready to roll here. And if we tell them that, well, you know what, we'll see you in November of 2020, maybe.
Yeah. This
I think that's troubling to me.
I've had a
My
constituent
yeah,
tell
go
me that they put things on hold because of this.
Yeah, there's several others that haven't told us that yet that I know that are out there waiting too.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Lyburn about this. What's your business feeling on this?
Mr. Library doesn't make policy, so.
But
none
you're
of
in
our-
touch with the business
None of our
community.
directors make policies, so we rely on you to make policy.
And
Okay, but wait a minute, answer his question now.
We do.
Your opinion would be though.
We do have a company that came to us last week that, we do have a it's more in the prospect. It's ready to go, but they have to go in front of the BZA. But we did we got them on the BZA for next week. It's a special exception, you know. And we have another one in waiting for that. So, you know, we would love for you to adopt this today, and you know, because we've spent a lot of time. You spent a lot of time. You know, we've spent a lot of time with the planning department, which incredible job they've done, and you have too. You know, I guess we'd like you to adopt it because we got people waiting too that don't have to go to the BZA. It's the $400 fee plus the attorneys plus the time. You know, so I mean that's anything you can do to eliminate cost or time. Time is more important than cost.
Thank you for
Like I
answering
said,
that.
Did I give you a long answer? But we don't make policy.
But you give us your
But
wisdom.
the thing is, they know that, the gallery does.
Yeah, I know.
I want to minimize the attorney used in making exceptions in conditional use. I believe we need to adopt this as soon as we're ready.
So why can't we just adopt this as we go forward with the intent and maybe say that whatever we decide with the residential, the agriculture, whatever that's left, that this could be affected and we would need to make some adjustments as a result of the future work we're gonna do on the other parts. Couldn't we adopt it with that, so that at least this would kick in and off we go?
Regardless, if you did that anyway, we always have that option, so yes, I mean, we can adopt this section, and then as we move forward, if something comes back, as we've had discussions on the residential and the ag that may affect this for whatever reason,
Okay.
we can amend that then.
Okay, does that require, what's the process there? Does that require 82 public hearings and 14 ordinance signings and
Just the
62?
same process, just one, 3 commissioners and one public hearing.
Okay.
And I think,
Because I don't want to get to that either, where we're, you know.
No, keep in mind, even when folks were working on this, they're looking at the entire zoning code. They're not just looking at, I mean, yes, we focus solely on all the 99% of the changes were on commercial, industrial, employment campus, but they've looked at the entire code as they've gone through to make sure there isn't an unintended consequence to the best of their ability.
Absolutely.
And if we find that there was one, either find that there was an unintended consequence, or that there's a change in one of the other zoning areas that requires a change in these that you're done, then you just make it along with all the others.
and, you know, Dick, to your point, it's very well taken. What could the cost be? What is the risk? And I agree. I believe there's much more risk with us holding on to this and not adopting it moving forward. And a lot more money would be spent, I won't say needlessly, because we know this will be accepted. There may be some changes necessary, but I think we're gonna have a 99.5% solution on this, and we should move forward, so.
Okay.
During this comment period as well, there were some map comments, I just wanna bring those to your attention. Some were requests for changes and some were just wanting to make you aware. So the first one, is, owned by Finch Services, the properties at Maryland 31 and Medford Road. This is on tax map 45, so if you can see the box here, they have this purple portion which is an I-2. Their request is at this time to bring the rest of the portion that is ag into their current I-2, so it's a split zone property. This could also be a by request. This is not recommended in the plan to move forward. So,
They own the whole property, correct?
pardon me?
They own that whole property?
Yes, they do.
They own it all with one zoning, so they're asking for it.
Yeah, but they bought it knowing that it's ag.
So the front's I-2 and the back's ag, right?
It's
In as
probably
much
better
detail.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably better to look.
But they purchased this property knowing that it is split zone, that it was ag and a sliver of I-2. Now they want all I-2? I mean, that's not, no. I don't wanna just make that blanket statement, because then we're setting precedents, allowing a lot of other businesses that own split zoned areas to adjust it to whatever their needs are.
So.
Or am I missing this?
No, and I think during the buy request phase, and we'll talk a little bit about that after we're done with these maps, that might be a more appropriate time, because during that time, we would be able to give more consideration to their actual request. We have a process in place for that. The property would be posted so that the community would
Yep.
then know, what's being changed.
Yep.
And that has not been able to happen under this process.
Right, I believe we have a process that works, and we should stick with that process.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Let's move forward. I agree, but let's go with the process that we have.
Okay.
Move forward with that.
Okay.
This property's been owned for forever
Yeah,
by 'em, and I know part of it was for going to be, their Finch Services out here. I did talk to some neighbors there who said they'd much rather see it in industrial than
well, I'm not against that, I'm all for them changing it to industrial, but I think for us to do it here isn't appropriate. I think we have a process for it to go forward to appropriately change. And that's all I'm saying, is just go through the steps we have. I'm not against them changing it. I just don't believe we should be the ones doing it when we already have a process in place.
Right, and especially when the process in place involves the public and public
Right.
input.
Right, that's all.
I mean, I agree, I mean, well, I won't even say that, but let's move forward with that.
Okay, so then we have a list of people that, other than those identified as part of the planning process, this would be, and in addition to that, we're sending letters out to them, notifying them. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit, but that'll be our process, notifying them. If you choose to do the by request phase consecutively after this portion, then we'll work on it then. This is map 3 BNR to BG. This item was from the Fogel property.
Is that map 72?
Get off 97.
This is map 72, yes, correct. And during planning commission, so it's these cluster of properties here, they have this property and these two properties. The ones that face, Fanny Dorsey Road are, BG. The recommendation was to move them to C2. Now they want these two properties to be, or this property on the corner to be C3 at Woodbine and Fanny Dorsey. C3 is reserved for the larger, more intense properties. This is a rural area, but we wanted to bring their request to your attention.
This is down the street from my house.
And this is what, I'm not sure you said it, this was designated commercial low in the master plan. The planning commission agreed to make it C2 at the request, and they've come back and asked for.
So it's already been upgraded from commercial low to C2.
Correct.
Now we go from C2 to C3.
And
What's
the
the difference
rationale
in?
for upgrading it to C2 was that the property right next to it, I believe owned by the same
Yes.
person, was also C2.
Okay.
So there was some rationale.
So that was, but that's already been done.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so what is the limitation, size limitation going, that you're allowed, I guess the extra size you'll have at C3, you're not allowed at C2?
100,000 square feet.
As from 25,000?
No, from 60,000.
And the
From where?
property's not even that big, so they'd have to go up.
60?
It's, C1 is 10,000,
Okay.
C2 is 60,000 as
60,
a
okay.
permitted, and C3 is beyond that.
But meanwhile, this property's not that big.
No, it's not.
I mean,
It's a small
Very
piece, if
small.
I remember.
again, we have a process in
It's like a half
place
acre.
to go through this. I'm not sure why
It's like 23,000 square feet.
why we've been having this discussion.
Because we're bringing every comment that came.
Yeah, they brought it to
through
my
this-
attention.
Yeah.
That's why they're coming before you. These are all part
Yeah.
of the public hearing comments.
Well, if we have a restriction in place for the square footage, and it's under that, I mean, I'd like to help the business expand, but it has to be within the parameters of the regulations we set forth.
And I think it already is. That's the whole thing. I think they're getting what they want by going to C2. The property's not as big as, they're already getting it by it being adjusted to C2, I believe.
And
Okay.
C3 is really out of character for this area.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's pros and cons to each, but I think C2
Why would
is
it?
very
At
generous.
least we give it the
Yeah,
the
why-
review.
But again, with all due respect to the comments, why are we doing this? Because I know they're comments, but we're not here to make these changes. There's a process to make these changes. So I'm confused.
Because we wanted to bring forward every comment at our original meeting that
Okay, so
came
you're just
through.
telling us the comments, so the banter that we're doing here, I'm
Well,
not-
you can make the decision. I mean, you can make.
but it would be, it's not part of what the regular process is to make these
It's
changes.
counter to what we just talked about
Well,
a
right,
minute ago.
because we don't really have a
Right.
forward
I agree.
process for this, so this is what we're developing now. So if you don't want to make changes on these comprehensive, you wanna have everyone wait for the buyer request, then those decisions still haven't been made yet. So we wanted to bring to you all the comments and requests that came forward, cause these are requests from these
Okay,
citizens.
so maybe we're skipping ahead, but the buyer request procedures are gonna be talked about
Yeah.
right after we,
Yes,
and we were under at least I'm under the impression that we were gonna allow buyer requests to begin immediately.
we discussed it, but I don't think I'm not clear on the official direction from the board on that. So
I
we've
don't wanna
talked about it.
circumvent, I don't wanna circumvent the process, that's my problem.
Sure.
So,
So this is the first
then
time we've
if-
done this. We don't have
I know.
quite a
So-
process yet.
yeah, so then I would suggest that we do. We're gonna talk, well, maybe we should talk about that now.
Okay.
I think we should do by request immediately
Okay,
after
so
adopting,
After adoption,
right?
after adoption.
Yeah.
To me, like, Dick, you're comment about Finch, I mean, again, they wanna move forward with it being all industrial, then they should have the ability to get in front of us as soon as possible, or get in front of the process to get it changed, you know?
We met planning and zoning board's responsibility?
When they do the by request,
It's
does it come
both.
to
It's both.
planning and
It's
zoning,
both.
they make a
Just as we did with
recommendation,
this.
and then we accept it?
Don't you,
Linda?
But they couldn't do that until we
Te-
adopted this.
technical people in the room, don't hesitate here, cause I think this is the way it should be, right?
So do you wanna,
This is a separate phase
Yes.
of what I think was discussed originally.
so,
I think you're going out of phase if you would consider these now.
Right, because it'd be arbitrary, we'd just be doing it from the table. Let them come in front of planning and zoning, make the make the request, recommendations done through planning and zoning, and then we have it on the dais and we say yes or no.
Yeah.
That's the
so
process.
do you want Linda to go over what she recommends to be the by request, process?
Yeah, well, I think it's an easy, I think that's easy,
Okay,
immediately.
Okay, so really quickly, this is actually, so if you could just bear with me for two more things. The properties here along 140, this is a staff request. These should have been changed in the maps that came to you to C3 along Baltimore Boulevard. I will say the property owner did come forward. He should have come forward earlier. He came at the public hearing to move his properties to C2 or C3. From IR, it's currently the Wolf Gardner Furniture Building, the bank, and the real estate agency on 140, right?
Oh, by the-
Yeah, and
by the
that,
ferry.
they already had BZA approval, and that was one of the things we did, and that was
Big
they just
squeeze.
dropped through the cracks, so that would be more of a technical than them coming forward at the bar, because they should have been moved as part of this process anyway.
Okay, so then that was an exception to the rule.
Yes.
So just make the change on that one.
Okay, but we have to bring these
Yes.
to you, we don't wanna,
Yeah,
Not
okay.
bring anything
That
to
one they
you.
can change.
right, now here's, now this, and I'm not gonna go over this one, but this is one that was at planning commission, this is another Fogel property and the conservation, they wanna go to C2. And this was another comment sent in, this was by Clark Schaefer.
It's on back, next page, flip it. Flip it to map 73, right?
73.
Right,
Yes,
map
it's the last
73?
map.
Yes? Okay. So that would have to be processed.
Yeah,
That's processed.
Process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be that by request.
Because this, she explained that, Dick.
I know, I just, doesn't sink in.
Okay.
He
Because this
thinks
was,
out loud.
this was, I don't wanna call it a mistake, but it dropped through the cracks.
No, this one did not, this is.
No, 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 I'm talking about
Yeah,
the
that
other.
one, that was us, that we,
That, they're admitting that
Yes.
it was a, fell through the cracks, so we gotta do that one.
So are there any others
no, that's it.
by
Um,
Part
request
of the
process?
process.
Then final, this is just a comment from several constituents, they did not like this property being C2, it's already zoned, BNR was a piecemeal rezoning, there were a lot of comments against this property being commercial.
Where are we? What-
This
what-
is along 26
what-
across
Give me a
from,
map number.
68,
This is,
map number 2.
map number 2.
Oh, we're scooting back. Oh, I got it. Okay, got it.
And they're opposed to this rezoning, but this is what it is, I mean, it's just falling in line, so I wanna just bring that to your attention. This was the same person that had concerns about the medical cannabis potentially too being close to the residential as well.
Okay, well,
They don't want the rezoning?
Well, it's already zoned, I mean, they did not,
They're not the owner of the property, they're.
Yeah.
it's just a comment from
He's my
a
constituent.
constituent comment, I'm sorry,
and that's fine. You're being transparent.
Yeah.
That's good.
constituent comment.
What's the owner want?
They already have it zoned, they requested a piecemeal rezoning in 2013 from conservation to BNR, and that was requested by the board at that time, was given.
Okay.
Again, and then people were commenting about this particular property off of Chapel. And Ridge, this property, there's no proposed changes at the time, so just wanted to let you know we've addressed it and told those property owners nothing's being changed. And I think it's because in the master plan it was identified as
Is
industrial.
this down in Marysville?
No, this is south of Westminster.
Oh.
Yeah,
So again, it was
Chap-
just a
Different ridge,
comment.
right?
Chapel and Ridge out here.
There is a
Right.
difference.
Chapel and Ridge out
Some
here.
chapel, yeah.
Is it-
Yeah, there are three at least. Mess you up.
No. And again.
Wait,
oh, sorry.
back up. Zero in on that again, please. Chapel and Ridge doesn't help me. Give me something.
This is Chapel Road here. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Ridge.
Oh, that's it right there.
This was an old rubble landfill,
Kate Wagner landfill, it's the old Kate Wagner landfill.
Okay,
and in the master plan,
Right.
okay.
it was designated industrial light, and then, but we're not rezoning this at this time, it's not part of this. This would be a by request if that property owner wanted to be in
Okay,
agreement with
then
the
that's
plan.
what, then that's, again, part of the process.
Yeah, and then same
Okay.
with this particular property, this ag parcel, this is, Maryland 140 Baltimore Boulevard near the landfill, and this is, I'm drawing a blank. Bethel?
Reese.
Reese.
Reese Road.
Reese Road.
Reese Road.
Here's
That's
the
Reese
Reese
Road
Road.
right there.
So this particular property is, industrial in the master plan, but again, no rezoning is being done at this time on this property. So just wanted to make you aware, because these constituents were very concerned.
That they wanna change it?
No, they don't want it
You
changed.
don't want to change.
So, and nothing is changed, we made them aware. So again, just to go over, we finished now all of those
Boy,
master
that
plan
is-
comments.
Wonder why they think that.
All right, so now Mary just has a couple other things, and then that will be done.
This is what, and Tom, jump in, because this really came from, Tom's staff. This is what we consider a technical change, but we wanted to bring it before you, that you had talked about this in the context of, employment campus, but we wanted it in all sections of the code, saying that solar energy conversion facilities that are mounted on parking canopies are considered roof-mounted systems, just so it's clear, as opposed to being principal uses where in some places they're prohibited.
It's just a clarification that
It's
we
a
requested.
clarification.
Right.
Okay.
So that everybody understands.
Yeah.
Crystal clear.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
All right?
I'm good with that.
And then next is another implementation for proposed language to clarify, applications that are in process. So conditional use applications prior to the effective date of the legislation, if approved, shall be allowed to proceed to building permit zoning certificate under the old code, provided the approval is not void under those provisions. Cause basically it has to do with the vested rights issue, and so this just makes it clear that if someone has a conditional use, that it's not gonna be pulled out from under them.
That's as clear as mud.
This is proposed by
Yeah.
Mark
You need an
Schaefer
attorney
and
to figure it out.
Well, it wasn't an attorney that proposed it.
It had to be an attorney,
Right.
with all due respect to the gallery.
Once again, another reason to do what we're doing.
Yeah, yes. So the quicker we
Yeah,
get this
so in other
done,
words, we're grandfathering them in.
yes.
Right.
Right?
If they've gone through the
Why don't we
process.
just call it what it is?
Yeah,
Why's
I
it gotta
wanna
be
do
such
something.
legalese technical stuff? Can't you use the word grandfather? You all got grandfathers, come on.
Grandfathers in general use.
Yes.
Seriously?
So what do you put on your driver's license then? Ah,
Don't go there.
Correct or Douglas?
Okay, so now at next steps. So I put January 1, I'm really gonna say probably February 1, when I did this, it was October. But, staff strongly suggests that it happened on the first of something. I don't think given the time that, we'll be meeting again and probably have another 2, board sessions, an open session, that we would reasonably be able to have this start as an effective date of January 1. We need to get all the maps finished, we need to get the text ready. We'd also like to train our boards and commissions before they implement this. We have a joint meeting with the BZA and Planning Commission scheduled for the end of January, so that way they can understand and have the code that they'll be implementing during Planning Commission and when they hear Board of Zoning Appeals. So our recommendation really would be to make this effective, if we finish this in December, February 1. Then the adopted maps would be the same, so they would be effective date of February 1 as well, that these rezoning would all happen at the same time. Then, as we've discussed, staff would recommend coming forward with the by request phase for the commercial, industrial, and the employment campus. So as you saw on many of the maps today, that there were some requests jumping a little bit ahead of that process through this process that we brought to your attention. But really, that would be the more appropriate time. What staff is working on currently are identifying properties who are zoned something else, but identified in the Freedom Plan and in the Master Plan to be commercial, industrial, and employment campus. We are identifying them, and then we are sending them letters saying we are going to be doing a by request phase, and here's the process and procedure for that. I would suggest giving them a 30 to 60 day window to come in and say, yes, they want to be a part of that, and then giving staff and Planning Commission a 90-day window to review the applications and take everything to Planning Commission to then forward with a recommendation to the board for that process. It has to go through Planning Commission as part of our code and state code, and then the board would ultimately make the decision. But what we'd like to do is a complete staff report for each property, post the properties. I think it's important because someone will be, they know it's not already zoned business or industrial, so to put that sign out that a rezoning change is happening, even though it's happening comprehensively, we don't have that change or mistake bar, but just for notification, notifying adjoiners. So it's going to be a similar process to what we do for piecemeal rezonings, which is also our current by request comprehensive zoning process that we've employed for the Westminster and Environs area.
My recommendation is that we adopt this by target 15 January, and not 1 February. And 15 January to
Make it effective.
Make it effective.
Yeah.
and we work
We
towards.
hope to adopt it before that.
I apologize, make it effective. Working towards adopting it over the next few weeks. We go into session in 2 weeks, and you will have this to us, by next week. It'll give us a week to look at it. We then adopt it, and then from that point forward, allowing people to get on the agenda appropriately, planning and zoning, with the new adopted plan.
So Planning and Zoning Commission agenda would be set under the old text for the January meeting already.
I don't want that. I want the January meeting to be using the new text. We want to move forward. It's taken a lot of delays in businesses and a lot of money that folks are, holding on to
Yeah,
moving forward.
but she's suggesting that it might not be enough time to train.
We would not be able to get the two boards together in time, and projects already on the agenda for January would still be under the old code, because Tom has already processed those through TRC under the old code. I don't know if, Tom, you wanna explain a little bit about that development review process in your
I'm just saying, I just want on the January agenda to be the new affected or adopted plan, or adopted code. As far as training,
Is there any way,
as far as training, the planning and zoning and the BZA, I get it. And I do recommend, we do have that joint session, we do the training, and if we do find ourselves in a bind, then we address it. But we don't need that training necessary to make this effective. I don't want to delay.
Commissioners, is there any way that you could adopt the zoning by January 1? The maps we're not concerned about, to just do that, but where the other,
Jack, they're not talking about, they're talking about.
no, I'm just asked this. Because
Adoption
we
is
do,
Not really so much the maps.
It's not
concerned
adoption.
about it.
it's not the maps we're concerned about, it's,
I agree. And the short answer, Jack, is yes. We should
We can.
be able to adopt it. It's
Right.
it's the effective date. Once we adopt it, we don't want to make it effective upon adoption. We want to make it effective at a specific date.
that's fine, because we do have deals out there that are,
That's right.
Yeah,
My
that are-
recommendation is 15 January, is we make it effective. And we adopt it as soon as we can, clearly adopt it, which is probably in about 2 weeks. That's my recommendation.
You have to give staff realistic time too.
I am. I do, I believe in staff.
Well,
think it's
maybe I can respond. As Clay and I just looked at each other and said, we weren't ready for this one. So thanks for the curveball. we would have to think about this, because I'm not sure, even if you did adopt it and you wanted to put somebody on a planning commission, if the plans are ready to be processed through the planning commission. You know, if they've come through the process with the new code in place, that we could actually get them on planning commission that soon. I mean, we have to think about this, because some of the things that they haven't been through, like they can move through the old process, because they're gonna be grandfathered in, those, but the new ones coming in will have had to come in under the new code, and I'm not sure they would be prepared to be on the agenda that soon. I don't know that. That's what I'm trying to think in my head right now.
I agree, I appreciate that, but, I mean, you know where I'm going with this, with a very specific action. I would like to see them get on the agenda in January if possible, using this new adopted.
I understand, yeah, we're addressing that. There's not to say what the particular development
Right.
is the plans itself wouldn't change. What happens is the use is moving from not permitted to permitted. So the plans won't change. However, I believe where Tom might be referencing as well is we are processing additional plans
Right.
that we don't know what the impacts of those would be, and so I know we're focusing on the one I just wrote down
Right.
here, but I don't know what else would be in that
Hopper, so to speak.
process that may be because of the time shortness that we're trying to do.
Right.
Certainly, that would make this one occur.
Yep.
But the other ones may be in a situation where it could be impacting them more than, because now it's, yeah, and I don't recall how
And if they're not ready by January, but,
Yeah, I think what,
yeah.
maybe I can clarify and jump in, Clay. Once you adopt the new code, then we can accept plans in under the new code.
Right.
And we're gonna have to go through a cycle, at least one pass with our review process to make sure they're conforming with the new one before we can even begin to put them on a planning commission agenda. So I don't think even, doing that condensed version there's gonna be time either for them or us to get it to your timeline, Commissioner. I don't believe so.
I think there is, if you look at where we're going right now, and we are taking risk with the assumption that everything that we've discussed will be adopted. That is a risk taken, it's assumption, but I believe we can move forward.
I think you're talking a little at cross purposes.
Yeah.
Because
Kinda where I
I
was
think when Linda talked about February 1 or your January 15th, what that is these new rules, assuming nothing changes from today or whatever you adopt on the 12th or whenever, that's when they go in effect. So everything after submitted after January 12th or January 15th, if that is where the board goes, would have to conform to the new zoning code. But what Tom's referring to is somebody who's in the process now, or somebody who comes to the process between, let's say, December 12th and January 15th. They're going to, you could do a couple things. They're going to either be processed, the people in the hopper now are being processed under the old rules, under the current rules. You could say anybody who comes in from the 12th through the 15th, that month between December and January, that they could sort of choose. Do they want to be processed under the old rules, the rules that are current, or do they want to be processed under the new rules?
Right.
And that would be sort of a window of a month, and they would have that flexibility. But after January 15th, everything new would be processed. So when you say going to the planning commission, that development that comes in between the 12th of December and the 15th of January might choose to go into the new rules, might choose to go into the old rules, but one way or another is probably not going to be on a January planning
For
commission
the
meeting.
21st, yeah.
Right. They're probably, because they're just probably not gonna be ready.
No,
It takes a couple months to.
I understand,
Right.
but they will be ready for the January agenda. there is a time of clunkiness that this transition is gonna take place, that you're talking about, and that's fine. But I want that the effective date to be 15 January with a targeted for the January, agenda to have the ability for businesses to use the adopted law,
Right. That, I
and
think,
that's fine.
that I
and
think
that-
you could do,
Okay.
right, staff? I mean, you know,
That's-
allow that flexibility that for the, let's say, if the commissioners do adopt on the 12th, that then they decide that it becomes effective on the 15th of January, that in that intervening month or 6 weeks, that you'll process the plans as directed either under the, by the developer or the, as requested.
Sounds good, motion to close.
So no, I'm not ready to do that yet, because I still have a question or two about that. So let me get this straight. We're gonna allow whoever wants to come in to choose which plan they wanna go under.
Just for that month, because
I
it's-
disagree with that completely.
Okay, well, that's just a thought, I mean.
I don't think we should be allowing anyone to choose.
Why?
Well, what would you
It's a
suggest?
transition.
Because we're adopting a law and we're making it effective 15 January, so therefore 15
Okay,
January.
if you submit before 15, you're under an old one. If you submit after, you're new. Why would you have the ability to
I
choose which one
apologize.
you wanna take?
No, I agree with you, but let me just walk you through this. Submitting doesn't mean acceptance, submitting means going through the process.
Okay, once you've submitted
Right.
before the 15th, you're under the old. But if you submit after the 15th, you're under the new. There's no, well, let me think which one I want to go under.
No, I agree with you, once again, I agree. But when you're submitting it, when you submit it, it doesn't become effective, it has to go through a process. So you're submitting it on the fifth, whenever, once it's adopted, and it gets effective, you don't want it to be effective until 15 January,
Commissioner,
that's all.
but
I mean, I
commissioners,
agree with what you're saying.
staff would have to know,
Right.
if you go with Commissioner Wance's idea, where there's a bright line, before the 15th of January, it's old rules, after the 15th of January, it's new rules.
For decisions, not submission, but for decisions.
Well, no,
yes.
because if I come in on the 13th of December, let's keep, those 2 dates, just to keep it simple. I'm not saying those are gonna be the dates that ultimately happen. But if I come in on the 13th of December with a plan, and you pass the rules on the 12th of December, and I want to go under the new rules, I can't submit my paperwork to development review, because they're going to process it under the old rules, unless you tell them to process it under either the new or the old as requested by the submitter.
Well, we gotta be
Wouldn't that make
smart
it
about
easier?
this.
Wouldn't that make it easier on staff?
The bright line?
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean,
I think, Clay, I'm not gonna respond, you respond.
Yeah.
Well, he processed,
Well,
I'd
Clay's
rather,
gonna-
Yeah.
I know what
You're
I
the
mean,
guy.
I think what I would say is, as long as it's very clear from the commissioners what you want, we can implement.
See,
Obviously, a
see,
bright
we're not
line
being
is the
clear.
is the
That's-
best way,
we're not
but
being
if you,
clear. If we say,
if
well,
you want
we got a
choices,
choice.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the effective date should be 15 January, period. I'm not saying choice. That was Roberta. I'm saying I want to adopt this middle of December with an effective date 15 January,
So,
period.
so you agree that if I submit a plan on the 14th of January, it is going to be processed under the old rules?
No.
See, that's why you're saying.
No, it's not, I'm not talking about press, I'm talking about effective date. It takes time to process.
But they have
You
to
know,
know under what rules
They
they're gonna
gotta,
process it.
because, yeah, they gotta know what.
You have a
rules.
timeline, you know when you're gonna be done with a product to allow for permission. And I'm saying 15 January, that's the date, that should be effective.
You're muddying the waters for
I
the
don't wanna
staff.
muddy the word, am I muddying the waters for you?
slightly,
Oh,
Commissioner,
don't you shoot that.
slightly.
You are, because you're allowing
Yes, that's,
whoever submits something to make a choice. We've gotta have a hard line, or else these folks are gonna be, well, okay, what do you wanna do? You wanna do old, you wanna do
Who
new?
works for
What-
who
But
here?
that's not what I'm saying. I don't
Do we
want,
work to help people get through this, or
Yeah,
do they have to just
Yeah,
toe
giving
the
them a-
line by what we say?
well, when it comes to this, I think they should. I don't think, because we gotta look, I'm looking out for staff. I'm looking out for my staff. And I'm saying,
For people that continue, that
listen,
are
I'm telling you right
consistent, we
now.
try to help them through.
So we're gonna let them control the staff, not
Why
us.
don't-
Yeah, so-
Yes, that's
Why
what you're
don't we,
saying. That's what you're saying.
Make it effective
I disagree with that.
So then make it effective upon adoption.
Yes,
So we agreed to this on whenever in session, 12 December, we make it effective upon adoption.
everything that's
It's
submitted
on
or.
the code says 10 days after.
Then
Okay,
10 days
from that
after.
10 days. From that point
Okay.
on, you're under the new code.
It'll be a Christmas gift.
And everybody, and that's
I'm
a
a Jewish
right.
guy, I don't know.
I just think out of respect for our staff, we've gotta make it clear. That's all.
That is clear. 10
I
days
think
after
that would be
adoption.
better because then
That's
people
it.
cannot change their mind
Right.
back and forth on us.
10 days after
Um,
adoption, it would be a
it's
bright
very
line.
clear
It
then.
takes away the
Yes.
window.
Okay, I'm good, I think I'm good then.
Yeah.
I think I'm good then, if you do it that way. I can
Thank you.
foresee nightmare here
Do my best.
if we don't give a clear
Full-time job.
date.
Right.
So if it's 10 days, then 10 days after adoption.
So everything submitted prior to that 10-day period is gonna be reviewed under the old rules.
Yep.
And everything submitted after that 10-day period is submitted under the new rules.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
I think Commissioner, your
So moved.
project would be okay under that scenario.
It's not my project. I'm just looking at the best
But it's in your
interest
district,
of the community.
our project, county's project.
Right.
No one told me being a county commissioner would be this darn exciting.
I mean, in a lot of the instances, there's not gonna be a whole lot of change anyway.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Right.
We're not talking about something that's just completely different than what we're used to
Right.
doing. We've made some changes, but nothing, I don't think, of the magnitude of what we could see, right? I mean, distances, there's the things that have been.
Heights and variances and
Yeah,
stuff
but
like that.
beyond that, I don't think we've completely rewritten the thing that would make somebody go, good lord.
It's either that time or you go work with Ed Singer.
Careful.
How do you feel about Cyrus?
Yeah, you were
Never know.
You were mentioned a few times.
All make life changes.
Eat your food and starve.
I just wanna make sure we're clear that when it would come in on the thing 10 days after, there's a cutoff to get on the planning commission then. That's gonna be a narrow window, correct? If we're looking at that time frame,
2 weeks.
2 weeks, alright? That plan would have to come in and has to get reviewed by our staff for compliance with the new, say they come in with the new. And then they have to be, I hate to say this because I say it often, a perfect plan.
Yeah.
They, you know, and that is very rare if it ever happens. So I'm not sitting here,
Right.
we can do what you say as far as getting,
But
you
you're
know.
still gonna be, the planning commission for months, maybe a year, is still gonna be looking at some plans that
Absolutely,
came
I'm not
in.
talking, that's not what I'm talking about specifically, about someone trying to get something in and getting it on immediately.
Yeah, but you're talking about them trying to get on for the old, for what we have up right now. Because if they're gonna wait until 10 days after we adopt this, it makes no difference how long it comes out, it's gonna be on a new rule, new code, or
Yes.
whatever you call it. Anyway.
Yep, we will process as quickly as we can, based on the quality of plan we receive.
Okay.
Is it the date they make contact with the zoning or with the Clay, or is it the date that plan
Submitted.
Submitted.
submitted?
Where it
Submitted.
gets stamped, you know.
10 days
Okay,
after.
so it's submitted and rejected. Is that still, and they go back and change it, is that?
Yeah, if it's submitted before
First
10 days
submittal
after
date?
our adoption, because it stays with the old plan, because it was
Right.
submitted then.
Because what you may have is
That's what we're saying.
plans that have been submitted early on, they may pull them back.
But we're,
Yeah, I don't wanna change it it may work
So
for
you give
somebody.
it, the date it's originally submitted is the date that they.
Yes.
That's the control
And it's
engine.
either old or new.
Sorry, what was that again?
Just say yes.
So let's say I
Whatever.
submit a plan, Clay, on 3 days before we give the date of adoption, okay?
Uh-huh.
And you turn it down,
That's
or
correct.
it's turned
Because
down.
it's not in compliance with the code.
Correct, okay? they would still work under the old code, which is what some of us are saying, because planning and zoning are
correct.
still gonna have to work under the old code for probably a year if it was submitted before that time.
That's correct.
So if you turn it down, they would still be able to resubmit under the old plan, because they submitted it
Correct.
before we put the date of,
Right.
That
off
is
we
correct.
go. Okay?
That is correct. However,
Oh, don't however, come on, Clay.
I'm sorry, this is the developers' ideas as to how rules and regulations can work. I'll just do a brand new submittal and file it under the new code and not change the plan.
If they want the new
That's
All right, well, then
correct.
what's the
Brand
pro-
new, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so then what would be the
That's
problem?
what I'm saying, so.
That's fine,
Correct.
that's fine.
That's right, and so.
So if they do a brand new
That's right.
submittal, then they're under the new plan.
That's exactly
If
right.
that's
So
what they elect
where
to
I'm
do.
at as to how to change
Yes.
that.
But if you turn it down and they wanna tweak something, and that's all, and not resubmit the whole entire
Until it
thing,
comes in and.
it would be under the old plan.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Bear in mind, when we say
Yeah.
a new submittal,
Yes.
we say a new submittal. And it is all new submittal agencies.
Right, and I don't think that we're making it hard on.
We may not, we may
I
not.
don't think that's making
but-
it hard on people.
And because a lot of the changes that are being done in the code aren't
Correct.
going to impact
That's exactly what I said.
a lot of things.
You're right this time.
Well, it is.
May I just-
It is November, so.
So,
Twice.
there were a lot of dates that were floating around.
Would
What's
you
that?
have a suggestion, Clay?
I don't
Cause you're the
have a-
one that this directly affects.
Well-
You're the one, let's be clear, it's Clay.
Yeah.
And his shop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your shop, but.
But remember, he don't make policy.
Pass the ball.
Yeah, so.
Are you looking when PZ's meeting, is that what you're doing?
What were you, where the planning commission, if the goal was to make the planning commission in January,
Right.
the planning commission cutoff in December is the 17th,
All right, couldn't be then, because. it
Of
has to be-
December, you said?
Right, it has to be
December
10
17th.
won't take effect until 10 days after we,
Which would be the 22nd.
which, if we approved on the 12th, 22nd would be the first day that the new code would come into effect. It can't be before then because you have to have that 10-day window or waiting period. So if we did it on the 12th, which is as quick as it could possibly be done, the 22nd would be the bright line where the new one take effect and the old one is no longer in effect.
But all that would mean is that the plans that are on the January planning commission, would just be processed under the old.
They're still under old, cause they,
Right.
yeah,
They'd be under the old.
right,
Yes.
Right.
unless they see something and wanna pull them, they could pull them and resubmit. But then they'd be under the new.
It's true.
I think it would be a very difficult time window to get any of the plans, I mean, does the plan come in on December 16th, let's say, and get to the January planning commission? I mean, is that really even possible very often?
Not to get down on the nitty-gritty on this one plan,
It didn't happen.
but in it, the disturbed area will not be changing at all.
Correct.
What is occurring on this one particular plan is, the use itself is moving from not permitted to permitted. Because based on requirements of the zoning district. The zoning district that this is in is becoming more
More allowed.
allowable.
Allow it.
The zoning district didn't allow this type of use, and now it is allowing this type of use.
Correct.
When the plan comments were made, when it first came in, that's what was made. And the text, or the zoning text is working its way through. And so as far as the disturbed area, the parking, or any of that, it will not be changing. What is changing is the big part of the plan, the principal allowable use. Because we don't have a use that can be
Right.
allowed to be reviewed.
Which would be allowed use under the new plan. It's one of these things, you understand the intent of where we're going and what we want to achieve. But, working through that intent, allows you to get to where you wanna go. I mean, if we make this effective or adopted, whatever date that was in December, 10 days later, we make it effective, you understand the intent. And it takes so much to get in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I got it, but like you say, Clay, if they're working towards that now, you know that use is gonna be allowed. And if it's not, then they pull it from it and it's not done. But
And resubmit.
But my point is, let them go through the process with a target date of January. And if something happens and it doesn't get adopted and it doesn't get made effective, then they will pull it back and resubmit. And we are talking about one specific case. I do not believe we're gonna get flooded with additional cases to get in front of the January planning and zoning. So, that's my recommendation, is that we stick to the plan, understand the intent, and go forward.
So,
And then enforce styrofoam usage.
so if, Lindo, getting back to your original timeline, what does that do? Do you have heartache, if we would do that? Wait a minute, let me finish. If we would do that before you had the opportunity to get in front of PZ and BZ to have a little training session or something.
I don't think so. I think we'll be fine. And we only made that one map change, so we can start printing out maps now. I think the one thing is that on the 12th, I think this body would have to make a decision on the 12th.
Right.
Yeah, because if you delay it another
Yeah, if
week.
you delay it, then that pushes everything
Then
out
that's
there.
everything.
And your week's behind because of the holiday
It could happen, that could happen.
Good.
So staff,
Good one,
something
Rachel.
in the parameter,
Right.
staff can work. Do I like
Absolutely.
things neat and I'm very orderly? Yes. So does this give me heartburn because of just my OCD? Yes, but we can work through it.
There's another option.
I got weak.
There is another option. Don't do it, never mind. Commissioner, Commissioner Frazier, doesn't want me to say.
I'm surprised you haven't already.
Oh, you're supposed to leave it 2
We're
minutes.
good.
That's only half the reason.
Okay,
We have decision on it.
You over on that? I'm done.
so we done with all that?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what we're gonna do, if it's adopted on the 12th, that means it would become effective on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Correct.
That would be your hard line right there, okay? So it would either be, sorry, my fire alarm's going off here, do it in your eyes.
It's all good.
That would mean that anything submitted prior to the 22nd would be old, after the 22nd would be new.
Got it.
So is everybody okay with that, if it's adopted on the 12th?
And you all
It's not a
understand,
permitted use, on this deal. It has to be afterwards.
but understanding the intent of where we're going. Do you think we can accomplish that, Clay? If everything else is right?
The plan was still in some technical agency review.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what the other agencies have
Right.
for that. Take the zoning off the table
Yeah.
for a second.
Yeah.
We're under one assumption that the technical agencies that are reviewing it are going to be okay with that
Correct.
review.
Well,
okay.
I think the answer,
Fact-
Commissioner, I know you don't want to hear this, but the answer is no, we can't guarantee it.
No, I absolutely, I'm not asking for a guarantee.
We're not doing this
right
for
there.
one plan.
Exactly
I don't
what you
actually
just
don't
said.
wanna hear
Well,
about the
hold
one
on.
plan anymore. We're
We-
doing this
we'll-
for the
we're
county
gonna-
and for changing
I got
the
you.
code.
We're
and-
gonna do the best job we can get
Right.
to usher plans through
There you go.
based on what comes to us.
This
That's
is
what
not
I was
about,
saying.
you're right, this is not about one plan, okay? And there's definitely no guarantees. But it's understanding the intent of where we wanna go.
Are you good with that?
Yes.
Clay, I don't know if you heard what I'm saying. I'm not just focused on one issue and one plan. I am focused on the entirety. But I'm also, it's an opportunity to understand the intent where we wanna go. And if it can get there, that's great. Definitely no guarantees, and I'm not asking for a guarantee. Absolutely not. But
Dick?
Okay, I just wanna move, comprehensive rezoning. I think we have a pretty much, transparent policy. I wanna try to eliminate this book. And as we move forward for the rest of the work sessions, I would love to have, stakeholders at least have an opportunity to participate with public comment respectively as we start to work through the next several areas of comprehensive rezoning.
in addition to what we've been doing.
Just, if there, a couple people respectfully on the outside edge have comments to make, we could make them as we go through this, because right now, I think it wouldn't hurt a thing, it would eliminate.
Commissioner,
This.
so staff has been talking about changes that they're going to make as they work through the next, sections of the zoning code. Do you wanna talk about those?
So just really quickly, we're working on an after-action plan, looking at what we've done, what worked well, what we did, what worked well out of what we did, and what we can do better next time. So, we can come to you with that, so as we do our next public outreach efforts, to make sure we're including everyone. I will tell you, you're still gonna get the book, cause we need written documentation, we need to have a history of what we did and the decisions that have been made. So I don't know if it'll get rid of the book, but, we certainly will do our best to be more inclusive.
But so an example of that would be, like, folks that are attending, when we're talking about issues, what you're asking is give them an opportunity to have input, as opposed to talk about them while they're sitting right there in front
And
of
that's
us.
how you
And-
conduct work sessions as a board, so
I mean, as
that's
long as we
changing.
control it, I'm,
I said respectful input.
I think they're two separate issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the issue of how staff proceeds with their portion of the process, and then how you choose to conduct the work sessions. Two different
interact.
things.
And after the public hearing, the record does officially close from public comment. So again, why we have the book, because technically, we can't be accepting additional public comment during this time period.
yeah, I don't think it's changing the process that we're staffing. That's not where you're going. What I think that he's talking about is, while we're having these work sessions.
As it's coming through, as we're talking about this item.
Actually, I suggest that we do have some, I think, positive changes that we will be suggesting for the staff portion of the process, that will be much more inclusive.
Sure.
So I think that, no, we do intend on changing that.
But,
with you.
okay,
think we need to
but
know
what we're
about it.
talking about is these type of work sessions, having dialogue, as long as it is controlled,
Respect.
and
If it's out of hand, you have a gavel.
then we stop it.
It can gum things up, I think. How would we format? Will we do like comment cards like we do on open
As
sessions?
simply as
Yes.
we're talking through it, comments made, if it's on one of these topics that somebody has expertise in, just make comment on it.
Like, when do they interject? I just wanna make sure we don't lose
Well-
control of the process.
May I just suggest that let staff bring to you their after action, suggestions, and see how that plays out. And then, with that body of information,
That's fine.
then if you choose to make any changes to the work session format, I would say if you're going to go to that format, then we just do regular open session with regular public comment. But I would suggest that the things we've been contemplating are some significant changes that will make a big difference. And my thought is that possibly changes to this process will not be necessary.
Well, I do want
But
to see
that'll
some
be-
changes start.
Well, that'll be, up to you, but I'd like you to see sort of step one before we go to step two, if I may.
That's fine, yeah, that's
So
fine.
staff's gonna analyze and review the existing process and come back with good, hopefully great recommendations. All right, sounds good.
All right, so let's back up a bit. Is that all you have?
Okay.
So right now, the avenue of action here is the 12th in open session. We could possibly adopt this.
Discussion
Or
and
the-
decision.
We could do it then,
We will be adopting text and maps,
Correct.
okay?
yes.
Then that record gets kept open for 10 days.
Correct.
which gives that hard line date of what we were talking about for the last
It just becomes
4.5
effective in
hours.
10 days, it's not like.
Maybe I exaggerated a little bit on that.
22 December.
22 of December,
First day of Hanukkah.
which is clearly gonna be said that prior submittal before the 22nd is old. Post 22nd is new, right?
That's your choice, commissioners. That's what
Sundown.
could be included in the resolution when you adopt on the 12th. That
Okay.
will be included in there.
Okay. All right. All right. And you have anything else, Linda?
Nope, and then, I'll work with the board about how, and if we come before you, tell you about fire request days and what we're opening up, and that time frame is on, and as well as our next steps, because we're working on residential concurrently, so the buyer request and all this will all be happening concurrently. as we
Okay,
go
which
through
I
the
think,
process.
which
Yes.
is what we were looking for.
Yes, and we are, we've
These
been working
folks
for it
gotta,
behind
they
the
have,
scenes.
see, that's the other thing about having a good hard date, because now you've got a place where they can engage for the buyer request. So, okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Just
Anybody?
fantastic work by all of you.
I want everyone to have a wonderful Thanksgiving with family, and don't talk politics or rezoning.
Topics to stay away from, we're good.
Motion,
Motion closed.
all in favor?
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.